Hey, hello everyone. Great to have you here today and welcome to today's webcast, Level Up Lessons in User Retention from the Gaming Industry. I'm Peggy Anne Salz. I'll be your host today. We have just a few announcements before we begin. The slides will advance automatically throughout the event, so if you are experiencing any technical problems, then please use the chat window to alert us. You can also use chat to participate in the Q&A session and ask questions at any time during this webcast. Just type your question into the box at the right-hand side, and we will take your questions during the webinar, at the end of the webinar, and at this time, we also recommend you turn off your pop-up blockers. So before we dive into the webinar, I just want to let you know we have a lot of people attending today live. We're live tweeting. So if you're out there, I encourage you to join in the conversation during or after the event, after the webinar. We aren't using a hashtag today, but we are watching Twitter, and our Twitter handles are as follows. You have at CleverTap for CleverTap, at Peak Labs for Peak Labs, at Peggy Anne, A-N-N-E for myself, and for our guest, Tiago Monteiro, it is at T Silva Monteiro. I'll spell that T-S-I-L-V-A-M-O-N-T-E-I-R-O. And we're listening, we're watching, we'll answer your questions. Now, on to today's webinar. As I said, I'm Peggy Anne Salz. I'm the Chief Content Officer over at Mobile Growth Summit. That is the world's largest Mobile Growth Summit event. It's powering this webinar and others in the series. MGS is also a global mobile media company providing mobile and app marketing professionals with content, community events, everything they need to grow their app business. I'm also a mobile analyst at Mobile Groove and with VentureBeat, as well as a top 30 mobile marketing influencer, and finally, a very frequent contributor to Forbes. And I'm joined today by my guest, Tiago Monteiro. He is Director of Growth at Peak Labs, and Molly Harsh, Director of Marketing over at CleverTap. And at this point, I just want to take a few minutes, hand it over to you guys. Tell us a little bit about your companies, about what you do, your daily job. I'll start with you, Molly. Tell me about yourself and CleverTap.
Hi, everyone. This is Malay Harsh. I am the Director of Marketing here at CleverTap. CleverTap, for everybody to know, is world's largest and most popular user retention platform. I have about 11 years of experience in the domain of marketing, and I come with a diverse experience of building businesses to scale. To give you a little more brief on CleverTap, what CleverTap does is we help marketing and product as well as growth teams at B2C companies to retain their users for life. To give you a further more detail, we enable this at scale in real time with pinpoint precision by providing a unique combination of a unified user data platform, building actionable insights and segmentation. So all of the intel that you build out of the platform is actionable for your business and helps businesses grow. Then coupled with timely personalized omni-channel engagement. Everything put together is what eventually leads to CleverTap being CleverTap. With this, I hand it over to Tiago to probably come here forward and introduce himself and Peak Labs.
Hiya. My name is Tiago Monteiro. I've been working in the mobile, web marketing for over 7 years now, very close to 8 years. I've been specialized in mobile for the last 4 or 5 years of my career. Now, for the last 2 years, I've been working at Peak Labs, and basically our flagship products, Peak Brain Training product. The easy way to explain this is to think about a gym for your brain. We work with different universities across the world to develop games that have some scientific backing behind to improve your memory or to help you work your logic or problem solving. And of course, we also have a few other products as well. So right now we have a sleep product called Rise, Sleep Better. So it's taking a little bit of the idea of training yourself, so improving yourself, but on the sleep area. As we know, sleep is extremely important for your cognitive abilities. And also we have a standout game from Peak called Quixel, which is right now on the App Store. So it's slightly different type of product that we normally produce, but it's basically one of our best, most popular games on Peak, and we just made it outside of Peak, so it's available for people to play as much as they want.
Okay, well, thanks, Male. Thanks, Tiago. And now we're going to kick off with the agenda. To give you an idea, we start with the lay of the land, the gaming landscape. That's where we talk about, some exclusive data, metrics, forecasts that you can get only here because we've gone out to get the data. Then we look at the shift from the purchase funnel to what I'm calling the engagement pyramid, walk through a new and very exciting framework you'll want to know more about called AIC. Then we're going to move from theory and go head on into practice in a fireside chat with Tiago. Looking forward to this. He's going to tell us more about how his company addresses the challenges of retention marketing. And then we shift gears back again to walk through a real-life case study providing valuable blueprint and information, how marketers can move the needle on retention and marketing. And we're going to look at Dream 11, which rocketed retention rates 5 times, and Molly will tell us all about it. Then we're going to take a bit of a break, talk about what we found to be the top takeaways of the webinar, and then get to your questions, of course. So let's get started. So it's no surprise to anyone, your gaming app marketers in the first place tuning into this webcast, you know that it dominates as the largest app category. But the surprise is how much the market is really worth, and more importantly, the revenues coming from mobile. So here I have a hat tip to Newzoo. It's a research company providing market intelligence for games, esports, and mobile. And its latest market size and numbers we have here, we see that mobile will generate nearly 40%, or a whopping $54.6 billion of a total global games revenue, which for 2019, Newzoo pegs at $152 billion for this year. It also tells me that it forecasts mobile gaming will generate revenues of $95.4 billion by 2022. That's the same year that the total revenues for all platforms are set to hit $196 billion. So again, steady growth that shows absolutely no signs of stopping. But let's put this massive growth into perspective, and there we have another Newzoo forecast. Games will account for 72% of the total global app revenues in the app economy by 2020. So again, overall, strong growth, big opportunities, what we would expect, and why you're here. So we know that, but let's look at what's really important, because it's great to know that it's a huge market, but there are also challenges. And again, it's no surprise, cost to acquire a user is still quite pricey. And here we put the price tag on that cost and the cost to acquire users who will register or make a purchase in a gaming app. That is across all categories of games, by the way. And here we have a sneak peek into the cost and conversion data from Liftoff, a full-service mobile app marketing retargeting platform, from their upcoming 2019 Gaming Apps Report. You're seeing it here first, by the way. It will be coming out on August 21st, so you can check it out. Go to liftoff.io/resources. And a special note here, it's interesting that at the top of the funnel, it costs an average of $4.37 to acquire a new gaming app user. It's a bit pricey, but it's an increase of 16.5% compared to the previous year. So again, we do have that increase in the price tag, but it's not massive. It's not dramatic. It is what you might expect. The cost to acquire a user who completes a registration also is not a bargain. At $9.17, that's up 33.3% compared to the previous year. So you see, deeper in the funnel, the more engagement, the more it costs. The conversion rate, however, 47.7%, is definitely looking positive, but keep in mind that's down 7% compared to the previous year. And finally, the cost to acquire a player who's going to be a purchaser, and that is the prize, of course, is a whopping $35.42. Not cheap, but the conversion rate of 12.3%, which is more or less flat compared to the previous year, just 1.1% down, is a bit promising. So the whole message here is, yes, gaming app engagement comes at an increased cost, but get your campaign right. Inspire action, inspire and act, and it can promise a better idea of what's going on across, beginning with day one. Now, Apptopia, a company that provides app publishers with app intelligence, they're looking into their data, sharing it with us, so thanks for that. And we see that day one retention, well, it has to be 30% anyway, or close to it. Otherwise, you're not getting the right users from the get-go, and you have to go back to phase one, stage one, and look over your campaigns. Now, we do see a dip in the retention curve, which is, of course, what you would expect, but rates don't fall off a cliff here, and that's a positive, okay, because it reveals windows of opportunity when the right re-engagement strategy and messaging can extend the customer life cycle, and we'll hear more about this shortly. So as you can see, it goes down as you would expect. But continuing with retention, we have another graph from Liftoff. Now, this one I really like because this breaks down the games by the category. So you can look across and say to yourself, okay, I'm mid-core, I'm casual, I'm hyper-casual. This is my benchmark. Again, we see, similar to the Apptopia graph, you know, retention is what it needs to be for that game. Day one is, of course, high. It has to be 30 or so for certain, you know, in and around that range for it to be worth it. And so you see from day one to day three, you have the biggest decrease. But if you turn that around, it says also that between day one and day three is when you have to do something, because that is when campaigns are going to have an impact, because there's so much at stake, basically. Now, this is the way I read the data. I'm a little bit of a data geek, but Tiago, we have you here. You're doing the real deal. You are doing UA. I mean, does this UA, the retention curve, does that match with what you're seeing over there at Peak Games or through your career?
Yeah, so in short, this is more or less what we see. So Peak being slightly more on the education side, and also Rise being more on the well-being. The initial retention is slightly higher, but we also see this type of curve. Now for Quixo, it's bang on it. So and I have to agree with you, is the first 3 days we found out that on the first 3 days where most conversions happen is where we can identify who are going to be our loyal customers. So if there is an activity that we can do, either CRM activity or acquisition, that can improve the retention of users on the first 3 days, definitely the you know the place to be.
Mm-hmm. So day one to day three, we agree. That's very critical. There's also a period in the day 3 to day 7. I just wanted to just reality check with you. That's also, I'd imagine, in the curve. So it seems to be like day 1, day 3, very important. Day 3, day 7, still a chance.
Yeah. So basically, the further away from the install that you go, so the possibility for the user to convert or to become a paying user for you or a valuable user decreases over time. So there's some sort of activity that you can do on the first 3 days, but then obviously there are some other things that can be done on the first 7 days. And we actually, I have some on the Fireshed. I have, we're trying to do and to optimize that. And of course, the first 7 days, even further than that, actually is like very, very important.
Well, it's important for me to hear that, Tiago, because I'm hearing a lot out there. I mean, I talk to app marketers. I'm not one myself, obviously. I'm an analyst. But I speak with them, and they say, you know, they're even starting to re-engage on day one. So literally they acquire a user and already start to think how they keep them, which brings me to the shift from purchase funnel to customer life cycle. Because, of course, in a market where the cost to acquire an app is rising through, app user rather, rising through the roof, at the other level, also seeing the increase in app abandonment, you know, the number of users who will quit an app after just one use is just alarming. And retention is an uphill battle for everyone in the industry, yourself included, Tiago. So you put it all together, and it's clear that the traditional focus on top funnel metrics is flawed. Our focus on a linear journey is completely out of line with user life cycles, and worse, it's losing money for marketers as well. As one marketer put it in a blog, and I did like this quote. I'll be writing up this webinar later and including this as well for our audience. Quote, if you are still optimizing towards net installs, don't be shocked if the downstream value of your downloads does not hit your targets or starts to degrade in the long run. So in a nutshell, we need a new way to look at the consumer journey, and this is where a new framework just published in July by the people over at Feature, great data investigation and great growth consultancy over there based in Berlin. Feature has what they AIC, and it offers, I think, inspiration and direction at this juncture. So I'm a bit of a geek. I've always said that. Everybody knows it. So when I see something very interesting in the way of models or business models, business strategy, I have to write about it. That's what I did here as well. I looked at the AIC framework. We'll be getting to that in a moment. But again, I wrote this article noting that the funnel that has defined app marketing, and all marketing for that matter, is broken. What you need to do is to focus on the retention. AI is a bonus, okay? But it starts with strategies from marketers that segment their audience by their actions, not just by static demographics. So you'll hear a lot in the industry when I'm writing about it and talking about it. It's all about actions, dynamic actions, not static demographics. So let's look at the AIC framework. So basically, marketers, as I've put it, marketers need a firm grasp of the hard data around the who of their customer base, but they also have to command the soft skills around what I call the why. What motivates their audience to take action in the first place. They need that, and then they need a third input, and that's what we have here from Feature. We have a framework, AIC, allowing us to measure and analyze user engagement. It's a model that breaks engagement down into 3 layers. That's what we have here. I'll just go over it briefly so we're all on the same page, literally. We have at the bottom, now that's where you're going to see most of your users. They're coming into the funnel. I think it's great that it's a pyramid, it's a funnel upside down, complete rethink, completely turning everything literally on its head. So we have acknowledgement. That's where users show an appreciation for the app, but not high intent. So that's just like opening the app or reading a push notification. Then we have interest. That's where users deliberately interact with the app, demonstrate a willingness to do more. That's, for example, tapping on items in a feed or consuming content. Conversion, the prize, always. And that's where users follow through and complete the core action that is aligned with the purpose and the value proposition of the app in the first place. So an easy one is booking a trip with a travel app or managing money with a finance app. And you put this together, and it gives us, as I said, a model and a mindset that helps us see literally the hard truth that engagement is, as the authors put it, a continuum ranging from low value to high value actions. So that's the AIC framework. And now that you have that, you think, okay, how do I apply it? And we do have an idea with this because we have a model that allows us to assess the value of user engagement and the potential impact on business. So I won't go too much into detail. I have written about this. You will get this in the notes after the webinar as well and see more of it because it's a great model because it gives us a blueprint for action. So if we look at, for example, how are things happening in the app? Are you observing layers are growing or shrinking? That will tell you how your app is performing. It's the signal that you have to take in, you have to acknowledge, you have to monitor, and it's the behavior in the app, and that tells you what action to take. So if we take, for example, let's just say more, as I've pointed out here, so where the arrow is, are more users performing actions that demonstrate acknowledgement at the bottom of the pyramid? Are they completing events? More of those than are completing events associated with conversion, for example. So you've got more people coming at the bottom. They're not making it up to the top. What do you need to do? Well, you can review your app onboarding strategy. You can double check that your user acquisition campaigns are designed to attract the right users from the get-go. Likewise, if there's a high correlation between the number of users in an acknowledgement layer and the number of users who progress to conversion, well, hey, that's great, because that's a signal that everything is right, everything is working, and you can double down on user acquisition. So I could go on and on, actually, but this is where I want to test this on you, Tiago. So we're going to move to a fireside chat, and you can see that I am excited by AIC, but that's me. You know, I'm an analyst. I get excited by data. But you're a data-driven marketer, okay? So I would like to know, you know, does this resonate with you? Is this something that you could see being applicable, for example, to your campaigns and how you think about, you know, life after retention, life after acquisition, life after that first action?
Hi. Yeah. So to be fair, it's something that we've been working on without knowing that we are using a model. So
Ahead of your time.
yeah, no, because a lot of our products, they have very constrained experiences, let's say. Um, so we try looking at demographics for a long time to identify, okay, which type of users are going to be, you know, more profitable for us or less likely to churn. But the problem is, you know, the same old knowledge comes through, which is older audiences tend to be more valuable and they stay for longer. Unfortunately, our acquisition activity always brings more young users in average, and so there is always this discrepancy between, you know, the growth team and the product team. The product team asking us for more older users. We try, but if we try to acquire older users, as we saw on the stats of the mobile industry, we see CPI going up. So that, which is bad for the financials of the business. So we have to we bring more young users, and it's like this cycle, right? It's like the dancing tango, trying to and not moving anywhere. So recently we start looking into the actions of the users to identify them. So to see if apart from demographics there's something else, and at the end there is. For us, we looked into it, and you know, the number of workouts or number of games played per day during the first week, it's a big tell of the quality of the user, for example. So, and it's a perfect metric for us to use on our acquisition campaigns to identify, okay, what is going to be a good user for us or not. And of course, peak is a slightly different, you know, the traditional gaming. So a user can convert over a large period of time. Obviously, we see the most the conversions happening on the first few days, first week, but there's still some, you know, around 30% of the conversions happen after day 30 after install. So if we have an indication on the first week of the quality of the user, it's quite beneficial for the acquisition side. Also, what this brings to the retention side, which is also part of my team work, is give us a very clear objective to what we have to work towards, right? So how can we use push notifications, in-app messages, and emails to make sure that the highest volume of users reach the next stage, to the next you know, number of workouts played per week, let's say. So it becomes very clear, very transparent. Because I always found that you know, on the retention side, if we try to track revenue directly, there is always an issue of how we do the attribution, how we do all these different metrics. So finding something, an event that needs to be triggered by them, so it really helps give clarity and direction to the team.
Well, you said you're looking at behavior, so that tells me, you know, this model is applicable. And you also have the type of game, you know, to be fair, Tiago, you know, it's hard to say, okay, daily active user, and if you're not hitting a certain benchmark, you know, there's something wrong, because I imagine that your game, because it is, you know, the gym for your brain, you know, it's it's not something that has that type of cadence, that type of frequency, and you probably have to also approach it differently. Again, a different approach to, am I retaining users, and how to retain them, and how to sort of check that. Do you have an example of that?
Yeah, so it's actually on the case. Yeah, so thank you for changing the slide. So if maybe I can go directly to the example that I brought. So we previous slide, please. So yeah, thank you. So we have our issue right now that I brought to talk to you guys is we saw that our iOS active users is falling continuously since around February.
Mm-hmm.
For some changes on how Apple treats the subscription apps. So we are seeing a big drop in conversion rate. Um, and unfortunately, we are not able to acquire as many users as we used to. We also have this a multiplier affecting this issue, which is the churn rate is increasing year on year. Not massively, but it's a continuous decline of our churn rate. So what basically the both of them together, these two issues multiply our issue of losing users. So some people say it's a normally it's a leaking bucket. So of course, as we reduce the amount of water that we can add into the to the buckets, the existing holes become a bigger issue, right? So we did some customer research, and some of the users said that basically, in short, they came to the product for the science, so they saw the scientific benefits of it, but then they stay for the game. So just like on the gym, as people subscribe because they want to lose weight or they want to be fitter, they stay for to feel good about themselves. And then looking at the data, we saw the same results, right? So users stopped doing the full workouts, which is around 6 games per day, and after 30 days, and suddenly they just focus on 2 or 1 game even, and just play that over and over. So basically, Peak became like a puzzle page type of on a newspaper, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's not really the benefit that we want to sell to the user. So with that in mind, right? So we try to look a little bit more and understand that how can we improve this? And the first thing is we are asking users to treat us like a games company, right? A games app from the beginning. So we're asking them to come back every day. And if a user has to come back every day, our games are very simple. They're very basic. So it's easy for you to get bored and to basically to overdo the product, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you need to give time for the user to feel the need to come back and not get bored as quickly as they are. So we looking slightly more into the data and understood that users who complete 3 workouts or more on the first week have a 60% higher conversion rate and 25% higher lifetime value. We also noticed that users who not on the first week but who are already a subscriber and they keep doing at least 3 workouts per week, they tend to renew the subscription more frequently than users who do less than that or just play a few games. So what this allowed us to do was to create a different set of actions that between my team, product and brand marketing, so we can start pushing users to see Peak as a gym and treat that as the same way. So you have to do a few times a week the full workout to have the benefits, but also on the serum side, on the growth side. So be more aggressive with the push notifications and messages. Make sure that users understand benefits of doing the workouts, and on the side of the product, reshape the achievements that we have, reshape the message that we have, so the user understands, okay, if you want to play the games, fine, you can come here every day if you want to play a few games, but you should try to at least complete the workout 3 times a week so you can see the benefits that we're talking about. After that is about making sure the user sees the benefits after they complete. So let's say it's three stages, right? So the first is making sure that the users are completing the workout. The second one is making sure that users see the benefits they're getting. So making sure that the data is available for the users at all time, and we make sure to communicate right in their face when so they see that there is something good about doing the workout with us. And once again, and this comes through my team, the growth team, preparing weekly performance emails to users, marketing, preparing blog posts, showcasing the science behind each one of the games, and even on the product side, making sure that we have the science always front, so the user sees that these games are not simply any games. They're not just puzzles that we pick it up from anywhere. They actually develop together with scientists around the world to make sure that we have something that's proven. And the last one is agreeing that we are going to lose some of these users anyway. So it's about using our portfolio so to bounce users around. So basically, if we know that a user is likely to churn at some time and they like a specific game, make sure that we have that specific game available as a standalone app and send them there so they can still generate some revenue for us, or even try to upsell them to our sleep product at this point, or any other products, well-being related products that we might have in the future. So I think the main thing to take from here, one is, of course, this is all hypothesis, right? So we don't know if this this is gonna have fix our issue. Based on the data that we have and based on the research that we did, we believe it can really improve. This is all going to be measured. So all A/B tested to make sure that we're moving the needle towards the right direction. But also, if you I before I always try to affect retention just using the tools available to my team, so CRM and acquisition, and unfortunately that's not enough. So if you want to affect retention, we found that you really need an effort from everyone in the company, so from product, brand, and growth, so you can really see the effects that can happen.
I mean, you talk about effects. Okay, granted, you're testing this approach. It's early
Yep.
days, but do you have any evidence that you're on the right track? I mean, what tells you, or how would you even measure, I guess, success? Because you have this event, you have to sort of wait it out. So you can't really do that because, you've got a longer retention curve, I would imagine, than a day 30 because of the way people are interacting with your game, right?
Yeah. So we have the main type of subscriptions yearly. So yes, it's really hard for us to understand the churn rate because it literally takes a year to see what happens. But we also have a monthly subscription on a lower volume of users. So our objective on the retention side is to measure the retention there first and see and expect that we should see similar results on the yearly plan. But for now, what we've seen already is that since we start using this trigger workout approach on the first week on the acquisition campaigns, we've seen a decrease on CPA, a slightly increase in CPI, but then the quality improved of the users that we're bringing in. So that's definitely a positive outcome already that we have from this. Obviously, this is going to take, we are well aware this is going to take quite a long time for us to see the full benefits of this and to be able to make a post-mortem and understand if, what did we wrong or what we did right.
But the fact that you're looking at it, that tells me, this is an idea whose time has come. We've been looking at acquisition. I've been looking at UA now for years, and it was the goal. It was the prize. And now I'm hearing so much more about companies, such as yours, looking at behavior, saying, I'm going to look at the behavior in the app, and I'm going to use that to figure out the events that I want to encourage and also understand retention marketing at a high level.
If I may add, sorry,
Yeah.
I know being on this for some time already, but if I may add, so I think it's quite a normal transition because, as you said, we've been looking mainly at UA for such a long time that the market is becoming quite expensive and quite competitive. So we need to use different techniques now to keep being profitable and keep being able to grow our products.
I couldn't hope for a better segue because, yes, we do need blueprints. We need examples. We need case studies. Great, because we've heard how you are segmenting and how you're prioritizing and how you're getting to what you want to achieve in your retention marketing. And now I'm going to hand it over to Male, who's going to tell us about another company doing it already, moving the needle on their retention. First of all, I think also telling us a little bit more about what retention and engagement really are. I'll hand it over to you, Male.
Hey, thanks for handing it in right in time, Peggy. I think it's critically important for us to be able to ensure that all our audience is fairly well versed with what are the various metrics that exist and what do they truly mean. So here I'm going to talk about just about 3 pieces, which I think will be of great value to all our listeners here. The first thing that I want to cover is cohorts, which essentially is nothing but a group of users that have completed a specific action within a specific time frame. Now, this, for all we know, and as historically we have always interpreted things, would have been no different than a segment. But the beauty about a cohort is that it is time bound, which is the additional dimension that helps define it. For example, one cohort could be users who downloaded your app for the month of, say, July. And then when you want to segment and understand what have they done, what have they achieved, based on respective cohorts, you can do and run various analysis. Then comes the other part, which is retention rate. Retention rate is a percentage of users who came back to your app in order to perform a certain action after installing your app. What percentage of your users are launching and using your app within a week after an install? That could be 30 days, 90 days, 1 day, 7 day, 3 day. The retention rate answers this question, which is vital for you to know because this is where the money comes in. Then comes engagement, which although comes at a later stage, but is truly the factor that determines everything else in, about, and around your app. It simply refers to the meaningful actions undertaken by an app user for your brand. And it is defined further as a cognitive, emotional, behavioral connection between a user and your platform, which helps you gauge a user's response to your app. So unless a user is actively engaged with your app, the ability of the app to retain that user is affected and are usually directly proportional. Now, moving on quickly in the interest of time for the Dream 11 case study, which is what we wanted to share with all the audience out there. So who are Dream 11? So Dream 11 is a fantasy sports platform based out of India that allows users to play fantasy cricket, hockey, football, basketball. Now, Dream 11 became the first Indian gaming company to enter the Unicorn Club, which essentially means that they are valued at over $1 billion. And they've been able to double its user base year on year since its inception. So what are the kind of challenges that an app, which is a unicorn, but growing at that rapid a pace, would typically tend to face? Those would be delivering a first-time user experience, which means if a user is to come in, download the app, install the app, how do you ensure that the user stays engaged? Also, there is a factor of seasonality. The 2 months period where the Indian Premier League is on is when they see the maximum traction and engagement along with acquisition for Dream 11. Proving the app's value is a priority for them. Dream 11 would also want to keep its users engaged well beyond IPL. See, this is where the engagement comes into play, where they want to ensure that the user experience value from the platform so that they keep coming back to it match after match, sport after sport. And then to drive up brand recall and re-engage inactive users. And what did they wish to achieve? They wanted to send out and engage more than 30 million of their users with timely personalized messaging campaigns that would reflect the fast pace of these live sports. So how did they go about doing it? Well, they leveraged CleverTap's user engagement platform, through which they checked out what their user journeys, what the flows and cohorts for their various users and segments were. So what are journeys? With targeted campaigns based on user behavior, location, and lifecycle stage, Dream11 engages its users for the most effective channels that drive greater conversion and retention rates for them. A flow is essentially where Dream11 uses CleverTap to identify how exactly do their users navigate through their app. These insights help them refine the new user onboarding, new feature adoption, and identify the friction points that they had within their system of the UX. Then finally, of course, the cohort analysis. By tracking down user cohorts, Dream11 identifies user trends, analyzes the churn, runs effective win-back campaigns to improve app engagement. And of course, as I mentioned previously, cohorts would be subject to a specific time frame, which is where the intelligence becomes even more important and pertinent. So the kind of campaigns that they ran through were daily engagement campaigns based on the A/B testing that the platform provided from CleverTap. So Dream11 performed an A/B test on various notifications and altered with the times where they would find the maximum efficacy. The highest engagement rates were for the afternoon campaigns, warning them that there were only about few hours left to create teams as an effective way to raise engagement. What is important to note here is that it's a way and mean by creating a sense of urgency in the user's mind frame. And it's that urgency which forces or encourages a user to go in further and engage with your app. So what they also were able to add in were the reminder campaigns to drive the engagement. Dream11 used to send out reminder notifications to its users just about 10 minutes prior to the deadline of creating a team, because the event is right about to start. So 10 minutes prior to that, they would send out another notification. And this built furthermore the sense of urgency and encouraged users to visit the platform to create their teams for those particular matches. What they did furthermore, and which I find really interesting, is that they added a unique ringtone to ensure a brand recall. You may or may not know that audio and sound has a way and mean of associating with your memory in a way which is unparalleled. So a sound or a smell tends to remind you of certain events, places, things, or brands, which is what Dream11 leveraged. What this did for them was that they were able to re-engage over 70% of their inactive users and grow their new user retention by a factor of 5. This perfected the new user onboarding flow to successfully activate and retain more users. And of course, through personalized apps, they were able to re-engage with the inactive users, which net is the benefit that comes out of the entire proposition.
I was going to ask you before you continue here, because we're getting to the whole idea of the key takeaways. Now, my key takeaway just basically is revolving around the idea that you, Male, and Tiago, you're both talking about retention marketing and approaches to it. You have a very interesting case study. Audio is fascinating here. Tiago is also looking at events, trying to predict churn. Now, he's early on. You're further along at CleverTap. Male, what are the signs of a user about to lapse? That's a tough one to pick. That's a tough one to describe. But maybe you have some thoughts or some tips on that, because it's about deeper segmentation than perhaps just paying and not paying.
I think that's a very pertinent question, and it's a question that bothers all apps and consumer brands alike. I think the answer to this is also fairly straightforward. So there are various events that can be gauged and measured by all of these apps to identify what are the key parameters with which users can be segmented as to about to leave, actively engaged, etc., etc. So in this case, say for example, a Dream 11, if a new user was just onboarded, had downloaded and installed the app, the first thing that you want to notice is how often does he go out and build his team? How often does he go out and add money to the wallet? The moment the recency and frequency of this starts dropping down, you identify that your champions are now getting eroded. And this, excuse me, is where you need to identify that the segment of users who are your champions and the segment of users who are not actively engaging with you are the ones that you need to focus on. Because if these users are no longer engaged, they keep adding to the cart but never complete through with the transaction, then these are the users you're going to lose out first.
I mean, to that point, I've seen, and you started to show it there, but you do have some focus on this in a chart. I just love you to show it, really, because I think it's so relevant. This has been in a couple of articles over at Mobile Growth Summit as well, not written by CleverTap, mind you, Molly, written by other people, again, showing me that, you know, we need frameworks, we're looking for models. Explain this one again, because I think this one has a lot of value to the discussion of AIC, engagement pyramid. It's all about this. It's all about understanding deeper segmentation.
So CleverTap offers a RFM grid, which is recency, frequency, and monetization. Now, if you look at the chart above in front of you, you would identify there's a frequency score pegged on the y-axis, and there's a recency score pegged on the x-axis. On the top right corner, you see champions. These are people who frequently visit and have last visited fairly recently. And these are the number of champions who tend to be most actively engaged with your application. These are people you want to keep really, really happy. Then come the loyal customers. They are frequent with you. Their recency may not be as high, but they are certainly frequent with you. And these are people who add items to the cart and transact on your application. Then the verticals that I really want people to notice are the ones on the top left corner. Can't lose these people. These frequently come in, but their recency has continuously dropped down. These are people who found great value in you, but for whatever reason, are probably not as actively engaged with you. This is where, and this is what gets highlighted with the CleverTap dashboard. And these are the people that need to be targeted to ensure that your retention rates stay high. The rest of it probably deserves an entire article to itself. So I'll probably not go over all of it.
Another webinar, a couple more articles. I mean, as a top takeaway, that's mine. It's this granular look at segmentation. But that's me. Again, I want to hear, Tiago, what your top takeaway is. Maybe you're as fascinated as I am by the granular approach to segmentation, or there's something else that stands out for you. What was it?
So I think definitely the granularity where we can go to. We definitely take our first steps towards working more towards retention, and something like using AHC or the RFM models can definitely help. Exactly as you pointed out. To be fair, ASC seems a different approach on the RFM, because at the end of the day, what you're looking is the activity of events on both of them. Like, it's no demographic segmentation, and definitely we need to look deeper into the actions of the users to predict what they're going to do next. And we on the game side, we need to definitely get better at this. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who's really starting or already working on this area.
Mm-hmm. Well, Molly, I mean, I think that is what resonates by all means. And I'd like to hand it over to you, because since this is where we're landing, everyone wants to know more about frequency, recency, retention marketing. What can they learn from CleverTap? How can they learn that from you? I understand you're also got some information and demos, perhaps, before we go to questions.
Oh, absolutely. So as I mentioned previously, CleverTap is world's largest user retention and customer retention platform. We are trusted by world's top brands. We have over 8,000 customers globally, and we reach about 120 billion events that get processed by us every month. What's very important to know here is that we aren't just a customer retention platform. We perform everything on scale and are exceptionally stable, which is the reason why we have been able to reach 1.5 billion devices. And we send and process out at least 80 billion messages every month. We are trusted by a lot of brands. I could go over all of this, but of course, the time would never permit me to. What I would absolutely want to share with people here is that we would love to set up a demo for you. We can set up live demos for you on the product and the platform, and how CleverTap can help your business become a lot stronger and a lot more robust. Because after all, retention is the new growth, right? Unless you fix that leaky bucket, no amount of acquisition is going to fix that problem for you. Along with that, I would also want to point out that we have the case study marked right here on the deck. Alongside, I've also put in the glossary of what these various keywords and terminologies are. So if at this point in time you would want to shoot away questions at us, please feel free. We are here with you.
Great, and great segue to questions, Q&A, because we have been getting questions in. We were also tweeting. We've got some tweets in, so we'll take a few here. We have one question here from Jeffrey, retailer. He says, in the futures trading industry and in other industries similar to gaming, they're looking at strategies to apply for client retention. Client retention says it's the most challenging. What are the strategies in gaming we can apply here? I guess the larger question here, Tiago, is, can we learn from gaming? And I always consider the gaming space, that's where you wrote the book on performance marketing. So there are probably also approaches to retention where we can learn a lot from the gaming companies. First off, what are your thoughts here?
So yeah, I think that on this side of the things we are starting, but I'm pretty sure, knowing that the people who normally work on gaming, it's very keen and very agile and very data driven. And also we have one thing that I believe that e-commerce players who have been doing retargeting and for a longer period than we have, and this tool that we have that they don't have is the connection with the product side. And I can't stress this enough. I believe really that for you to be able to affect retention, you need to work together with your product. It needs to come from both sides. So how can you change your product? How can you do small tweaks on your product that are going to allow you to keep users more engaged, and use that afterwards, together with some marketing messages that can bring users back. I think that's the point that I believe that we can share with the community right now.
Mm-hmm. And a question here from Nicola Madhead Games. Are there any changes in time, over time, something that was crucial to user retention in the past, now less relevant? What are some factors that come into play? Also, what can you tell us about the differences in these factors among different target groups, younger millennials versus rest, etc.? I think this is for you, Male, because it takes us back to your grid earlier, retention changing over time and some of the factors around that, maybe also something you're seeing around the the demographics of the audience, but how that also matches with the dynamics of retention.
Well, that is really quite a question. If you look at it, it's multiple questions that are loaded into one. So yeah, of course, a lot has changed over a period of time. And yes, psychographic segmentation, which is another core principle and fundamental that CleverTap is fairly strong as a platform on, is critical for you to be able to identify what are the parameters on which retention works. What are the parameters on which users engage with you? So for a millennial, there are certain times during the day, and that would depend, of course, from application to application. But as we discussed during the Dream 11 case study, it was found that the noon time was best suited for an engagement campaign. For whatever reason, users were able to make time during that campaign. And this is when most of the messaging turned out to be most successful. Of course, all of these users were aged anywhere between 21 to 32 or 35. So that also is a user demographic that you need to look at. Based on the kind of game that you're looking at, it could be something that kids tend to play a lot more than, say, an adult. And based on it, of course, the play time is going to change. So assuming if you were to look at it from the perspective of a persona, if I'm a student who does a commute at X and Y times only, and this is the time when I most conducively engage with the mobile platform that I have with me, which is the cell phone, then this is probably also the best time for app marketers to target me, because this is when my attention is most focused at you. So based on the recency, frequency, and monetization metric, a lot of this can come forward. Based on A/B testing and segmentation, a lot of intelligence can come in on the timing. And of course, based on the psychographic understanding of the user persona, you will also be able to build a messaging that will be most relevant and pertinent to the user that you're reaching out to, and hence personalized. And everybody respects personalization.
Okay, so very much moving beyond demographics to psychographics, personas, behavior. Time for one last one because it's coming in via Twitter and I can't very well say no to that. Live from Steve H. at Shova983. Steve's question, good one too, by the way. Many apps, or at least in social casino, don't even reach break even at ROAS for over 30 days. So why is there so little attention on M1, M6, and M13 metrics? In other words, everything past day 30. Good one for you, Tiago.
So it's very simple. It's if you're running acquisition activity, you need to have a certain quickness on the or timely data coming back, so you know what changes you need to make, how you can optimize your campaigns, right? So waiting for 1 month or 2 months to understanding for cohort is worthwhile or not, it's too long. So that's why normally on the UA side of things, you just tend to look at the first week at best and try to create models that will give you some sort of predictions for the value of the user. Now what we're seeing, and I think that on the social gambling casinos, and I have to iterate on my previous answer because they probably are the ones also, they have a lot to show us on terms of retargeting, because they've been doing this for some time. Exactly as you said, users, their value of the users will come later on the lifetime. So that's, but pretty much, yeah, that's, so basically a focus on the retention, re-engagement of the user on that side. So acquisition, obviously we need data now, so we need to focus on the first week.
Mm-hmm. And then look at those events and sort of be more predictive, and and that's also what the model's about. We could go on for a while. I know we're running out of time. We're going to have to maybe cover some questions later on. As I said, they're coming in live in Twitter. All the more reason to say we continue the conversation on social. As I said before, you can contact me at Peggy Anne. We've got at CleverTap, at Peak Labs. Tiago, what's the best way for the conversation to continue? Maybe social, maybe email? What would you say?
Yeah, so you have my email, my Twitter account at the beginning, or you can send me an email at tiago@peak.net as well.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I might take some time to reply, but I'll do my best.
Okay, Molly, how about you? As I said, the conversation continues. How can they keep in touch with you?
So people can directly reach out to me by tweeting to me, which is at Malay Harsh, or you can write to us by emailing at marketing@clevertap.com. And of course, somebody will touch base with you within the 24 hours from that.
Perfect. And on behalf of our guests and myself, I thank you, audience, listeners, friends, so much for attending today's webcast. A reminder that this webinar and all the materials that were referenced here will be available online, and we will let you know when and where. so you can download the recording. I'm Peggy Anne Salz signing off today for Mobile Growth Summit. Thanks everyone for joining us for this webcast and looking forward to many more. See you soon.